Hello everybody, my name is Dandy and I'm part of KeySmash Studios, and I'm here today to talk about the most recent update to one of my favorite survival horde crafting games, 7 Days to Die. So a little information for those of you who might not know. 7 Days to Die is an open world crafting survival horror zombie blah blah blah. It's a great game in an open world setting where you build things and survive zombie hordes. And I have absolutely loved this game for the longest time now. I've played it since pre-Alpha 17. I don't remember when I started, but I remember Alpha 17 coming out, changed the game dramatically, and just recently, October 25th, I believe, they released the A18, the Alpha 18 update, and it is the biggest update they have ever done. I mean, this update is mind-bogglingly massive. If you look in the link below under this video in the description, I'm going to post the A18 update log. It's unbelievably huge. They changed almost the entire game, how the mechanics work, weapons, zombies, AI, sound. They changed it all, and what I'm going to do here is review some of that based off of the logs and based off of me playing for about 3 hours after the release. I haven't had a lot of free time to really delve into it, but I cranked the settings up so I could fly through the game a little quicker, and I really got to experience some of these changes and how absolutely amazing they are. So we're going to get right into it. The first thing that they updated that I really wanted to talk about was optimization for the game. So they made 3 really powerful changes that are going to help this game run more smoothly on everybody's computer. They worked on their occlusion system, and the way that it works is essentially occlusion is when you can't see an item, it doesn't render it in. That saves processing power, RAM. It allows your computer to handle the game better. What they've done is they've refined their occlusion system so that even on-screen objects, if they aren't in your direct line of sight, are no longer being rendered. So if technically your screen would be facing a wall and there are trees behind that wall, instead of rendering those trees, anything that it knows you can't see past the wall isn't going to be rendered, and that saves processing power and helps the game run smoother. They also worked on some of the collision geometry for certain aspects of the game. With geometry, too many triangles, too many shapes on an object that build up the collider make it not only collide wonky, but make a lot of physics calculations which require a lot of processing power. So they've simplified that geometry for a lot of their objects, which again will help the game run smoother. And finally, they removed a lot of unneeded detail from certain objects. Some objects just had way too many polygons, and it was causing a lot of slowing of the game, so they removed a lot of that. Another thing that they did, and this was just a small note that they left, was they changed the zombie balance, particularly in respect to lowered biome spawning. Now, certain biomes are going to have different spawn rates of zombies that help it feel a little more traversable. It doesn't feel like you're walking into a trap every time you enter a new biome. So that's going to be really cozy. And I actually got to notice that while running through the desert and the forest in my playthrough that I did of this new update, where it felt like zombies weren't just waiting for me at the border, and it didn't feel like things were popping in around me as soon as I showed up. That was great. So another one of the big systems that they changed was the attribute system. First of all, they updated it to where instead of just leveling up and putting points into this, that, and the other, there's kind of a class system now. Not a structured class system, it's up to the player still entirely. But each different area, strength, intelligence, survival, durability, each one of them dictates certain weapons and certain perks. So you can still grab, healing factor from this or sexual tyrannosaurus from that, but instead of having to focus too much on one or the other, or having to focus on being a weaponsmith or whatever, you can kind of single out what you want to do and focus on that. For instance, each class now specializes in one ranged and one melee weapon, and that allows you to choose, all right, I really, really, really want to use sledgehammers. I'm going to focus the sledgehammer build for this. And that's cool because it kind of diversifies each person's playstyle by letting them focus a little more. They also slowed level progression, which is a little questionable, but their new system requires a lot less points to delve into the skill trees. It takes less time to get some of the higher level perks, meaning that them kind of slowing the leveling keeps you from power leveling too hard. So instead of hitting late game and already being way overwhelming and not having to struggle, it keeps you in that play state of actually having to work to survive. Of course, you can alter settings in game to change this, but the base game is trying to balance that enjoy yourself but have to fight to survive. Another thing that they added, and this will come up later, is schematics. They reintroduced schematics to the game. So now instead of having to have one player in your party or just yourself, focus a ton of level points into the intelligence tree to unlock blueprints for things that you need to build down the line, you can actually find schematics in the world to build most items that require leveling. So you can either, if you haven't found a schematic you need, you can either dedicate leveled up skill points into unlocking that knowledge, or you can traverse the world, explore a whole bunch, and hope to find a blueprint for whatever you need. And that, again, allows you to not have a designated intelligence party member who might want to kill zombies but is stuck indoors all day making concrete or iron. The last little bit of the attribute thing is they removed the ability to upgrade your health and stamina through skill levels. Instead, you gain 1 point of health and stamina per level up. So you're just going to passively get more health and stamina as you play the game. So the next section that they changed up were just general game changes. They've added new items and crafting, and the quality is based more on the perk now. As I mentioned earlier, since there's a more defined kind of class system, you're not just going to have a perk that says build all guns better or build all weapons better. It's now, all right, I want to be a brawler. I want to use my knuckles to fight, so I can upgrade knuckle-based weapons better, which we'll get into the knuckle-based weapons later, a little spoiler there. But you have to focus on what weapons you want to upgrade, and the way these weapons work now are, it's based on parts. So you'll find like sledgehammer parts, and if you want to build a high-tier sledgehammer that has, 3 equipment slots, you're going to have to use a lot more parts than building a low-tier sledgehammer. So a lot of the higher grade weapons are based on parts, but don't fear, the primitive weapons, like anything stone-based, are still just sticks and rocks, and that's fine. So they leave that lower level kind of the same, but the upper level takes a little more work, more or less, depending on how you like the old system. And again, with all the schematics, it makes it easier to be able to build these new weapons instead of having to wait forever. You still have to get the materials, but you don't have to level up your skill tree a bunch and waste a bunch of levels in intelligence just to be able to build a sledgehammer. Another thing is that armor perks are not around anymore. Your armor is dictated by other things, but armor has been upgraded so that it reduces your bleed and stun chances, so that's handy. The final upgrade to just general game changes is that encumbrance has been edited. In Alpha 17, they changed it to where when you spawn, you can't access most of your backpack without being encumbered. They realized that was a little harsh, so they backstepped a little bit, gave you a little more of your inventory back from the start, and also have mods for clothes that allow you to have deeper pockets, which means more inventory space as you move on. So it's a little more fair from the beginning, but you do still have to work to get that full inventory up. So another area that they really worked to improve was something they called the death loop. The death loop was, in the old system, when you died, it affected a whole bunch of your perks and abilities and stamina and health, and this made it more likely that you die again, because you come back a lot weaker than you were when you died, then you have to go try to get your stuff, and then because you're weakened, you die more easily. So there was the cycle of die, be weakened, try to fetch your things, die, repeat. And they wanted to soften that. So what they've done is they've changed the death penalty from perk affection and health and stamina, whatever, to XP loss. So now you lose your experience when you die, and that'll happen. They also made it to where if you die during a blood moon, the zombies are no longer hunting you. As you might know, during a blood moon, zombies are always aware of your location and are very determined to get to you, and they usually spawn in large hordes. So they edited it so that if you die during a blood moon, the zombies will no longer be aware of your location as if it's just another night. However, if you return to attacking and fighting zombies, they will be re-alerted to your position. So if you die and you're like, alright, I can't handle this, I just need to hide here until this blows over, bingo bango, zombies aren't hunting you anymore. However, if you go back to fighting, they go back to fighting. Another thing they added, which I'll touch on a little more later, is they updated noise detection, but that's a part of later, and bleeding does less, and armor helps prevent bleeding pretty significantly, so if you have that, it'll kind of keep you from re-entering that death loop. So that's something handy they did. Now this update is something I'm very fond of as a primary melee weapon user in the game, and they added better melee detection and glancing blows, which is huge. If any of you have played this game since Alpha 17 or earlier, you're going to realize that as you were swinging at zombies, you felt it might have been hard to impact them with your weapon. That's because before, the melee system was very binary. It was very hit or miss. When you were swinging, if you didn't align your hit marker, or if you didn't align your crosshairs with the zombie, you'd miss them entirely, dealing no damage, and it made it very hard. It made fighting zombies a dance. With this new system, there is a scope, a range of detection for the hitboxes, meaning that if you don't hit them exactly, you can still hit them with a glancing blow. This glancing blow will deal less damage, obviously, because it's just a glancing blow, but this means that if you're fighting a horde that's right in front of you, if you hit the one in the middle, you also get a little damage off to the people around it. So it's a total improvement of the melee system, and they're going to continue to work on this arc style of melee with glancing and primary blows. Another upgrade that kind of goes along with that is they polished the melee audio noises. They just wanted to add sounds that told you whether or not you were landing glancing blows or landing direct hits. So that's another update they did. Something else they've worked on is they've had their animation team rigorously working on refining and fixing up all of the first-person animations. They're very polished now, so as you're going through the game, you'll see that animations like swinging an axe, eating something, using different weapons are going to feel a little more fluid, and that's just been a lot of work on their animation team. They've also updated frames for thrown items, so when you throw an item, you'll get a better idea of what exactly is happening with it. It won't kind of feel like it's jumping around through space. They've also worked on adding, and this is impressive, a dynamic music system. Now, they claim to have 750 different potential audio loops that can connect to one another. And what they've done is they've programmed a system that as you're traveling, as events are taking place, as things are happening, they're hoping that this music system will dynamically adjust and move to different loops to help you feel more immersed in the gameplay. It makes things more exciting, more immersive, more creepy. They're working on making very atmospheric music, and I'm very excited to see the system grow. They said they're going to continue working on it from here out, so now that this is an established feature, I hope to see it continue to get better as we move forward. Another one of the systems that they updated was how you get infected, which is a big deal in a zombie game. You know, the infection's a big issue, and we're not immune in 7 Days to Die. That's a big point they wanted to make. So in the last game, you'd get infected, it would pop up, and then you just take antibiotic or eat some honey, and it would be over with. I don't really remember the exact effects of it, but it never felt like it was really torturing you. I had to deal with their new infection system when I played the other day, and it definitely feels more inhibiting than it did before. So the way it starts is, for one thing, the higher your health, the harder it is to get infected by being attacked. The lower your health, the easier it is to get infected. Once you're infected, it starts at 1%, and you're always aware of it in the corner of your screen. So as it progresses, over time, real world hours as compared to game hours, you slowly become more and more of a zombie. So the breakdown goes a little something like this. From 1 to 14% of infection, there's no effects, you're fine. From the 15th percent to the 57th percent of infection, you have a negative 25% stamina recovery. That means you lose 1/4 of your stamina recovery speed, which is absolutely crippling in this game. If you're in the desert and sweltering and already losing a lot of stamina, or if you have dysentery, which I'll get into later, this really does affect the amount of things you can do. You can't sprint, you can't use weapons or items, it's terrible. Now, to get even worse, if you let the infection get from 58% all the way to 100, then you have negative 35% stamina recovery, which is even less stamina recovery, and it will reduce all of your attributes by 1. So this is not only reducing the amount of stamina that you have, but it's also taking away your primary skills. Now, if you let the infection creep all the way to 100, you die. That's it. It's game over. Fortunately, like I said, from my experience playing, it does creep up pretty slow. If you get infected early and you haven't found any antibiotics or any honey, it can be very, very hard to counteract though. I made it all the way up to about 25%, which was crippling with the stamina loss, before I was able to find antibiotics. And the way that it works is it's not like you take the antibiotic or eat the honey and it cures the infection immediately. One of the biggest issues with it is the fact that once you take that antibiotic, it's going to slowly start ticking that percentage back down in the negative direction. So if you make it all the way to 80%, you're going to have to take about three or four antibiotics, and it's going to take a lot of time for that infection to negate itself. So the worse you let this get, the longer you're going to suffer because of it. And I think that's a very interesting system, because you can get rid of it almost immediately if you have the materials, but if you let it go unchecked, it will ruin you and odds are cause you to die. Another thing they updated along this line in the area of illness is they've updated the way dysentery and food poisoning work. Essentially now, every food that isn't a canned food has a chance to give you food poisoning. What food poisoning means is your character's vomiting and feeling sick, and this causes you to lose a lot of your food. So the solution for this is eating and then slowly healing yourself. I think there's a medicine or a tea that can help calm this, but essentially you just have to make sure you keep eating as your character's throwing up. Otherwise, you're going to be hungry, you're going to lose a lot of that stamina, and it's going to be really bad. They also added dysentery, or updated the way dysentery works, where you have a small chance of getting it from boiled water, and this is consistent through all waters except for the new water they added, which is like a mineral water. So drinking teas can help fight dysentery, but you have to make sure you stay hydrated because your character will rapidly lose their hydration during a bout of dysentery. So you have to look for either the bottled mineral water or just be very careful when guzzling boiled water because you will get sick. And I ended up having both dysentery and an infection the other night, and getting thirsty a whole lot and losing your stamina regen was devastating. I almost couldn't do anything. So another update, and this goes along with me earlier saying that armor reduces the amount of potential bleed damage, or it actually helps negate the effects of bleeding, is that armor now reduces stun chance as well. So if you have your armor on or whatever and you're fighting zombies, you're going to have a lot less likely of a chance of getting stunned by them, which is great because getting stunned makes you disoriented, it's hard to move, you walk slower, and you're more likely to get hit and start bleeding or something, so that's good. So one of my favorite updates, and I've been excited to talk about this one, is HD icons. They actually added in brand new icons for the game that look absolutely beautiful. They're gorgeous. They changed the pictures for some of the items like wood, rotting flesh, dirty water, all that kind of stuff. They've changed it around. It looks, for one thing, the HD is crisp. All of the things are very well defined. Then all of the new icons that they made are absolutely gorgeous and I think fit the objects well, like lead or arrows or whatever. And I'm just really happy with it. That was just a quality of life that, other than how the game looks, it doesn't affect gameplay, but they took the time to really go through and flush all of those out, and they look immaculate. So it was really fun picking up all these objects that I'd carried around 100 times before just to see how they updated those HD icons. That's just, it's great. You get in there, you're going to look at all of them, you're going to love all of them. And another area that they updated, and we're getting close to the end. There's a lot of updates, like I said. But they updated books and schematics. So the books and schematics have been added into the game again with a new life, essentially. Books now allot you perk points for certain skills, and each book has a set, and you can look at this in your skill tree. And as you collect these books, each one gives you a little bit of a skill, but if you collect all of them in one set, it gives you a set perk. So you can go through, read books to unlock new skills, and if you're lucky enough to find, I think 7 is the usual set. If you're lucky enough to find all 7, you get a really nice bonus for having the entire set. And then schematics are what I mentioned earlier. You essentially have the ability to unlock the blueprint or the ability to build any item in the game based off of finding the schematics around. So if you don't want to blow your points in the intelligence tree to learn how to make things, look for the what I just say, schematic. Just find that, do a lot of hunting, and you'll be able to build whatever you need to build, which is super great in my opinion as somebody who usually plays a more offensive role. So another big thing that they added were a lot of new weapons. I mean, a whole slew of new weapons. Going down the list, they added spears, which are great because they're long range, a little longer range thrusting weapons, but they can also be thrown. If you hold down right click, you charge up a spear and you can throw it. And that is absolutely impressive. It's super fun to use, and since you can make stone spears, they're very cheap, very easy early game item to help you fight zombies without getting too close to the action. Once you throw it, it gets stuck in whatever you hit. You just walk up and hit E and you pull it back out, and you can just keep using it. And they're relatively durable for how cheap they are, so it's a great weapon. There's a whole evolution of them from stone to steel. They also made a very impressive weapon called the junk turret. The junk turret can be used as either a handheld weapon or an automatic firing turret. So while you're holding it, you reload and shoot it like a gun. The ammo is made out of just iron, so it's relatively easy to make and have a lot of. But if you reload it, you can actually right-click and place it on the ground, and it'll shoot anything in a radius in front of it. So if you're running from a bunch of zombies, you can have your junk turret set up, run by it, and let it start shooting at whatever's behind you. It's a super useful item, and I could see that being a pivotal part of Day 7 waves, to have a bunch of those set up around your house so that approaching zombies are being shot at autonomously. I personally used it to clear out some buildings with my friends when we were playing, any building that we felt like had too much danger in it, we'd set up our junk turret, go make the zombies mad, and then lead them behind us back to our junk turret and let it do all the work. It's absolutely amazing. Plus, you repair them with repair kits, so the maintenance is relatively easy. They added a new melee weapon called a stun baton as well. Absolutely great. It works like a club kind of, but if you hit a zombie enough, they become tased. Very noticeable effect, lightning coursing through them, and they lose their ability to move for a while. This is great for group fights because if you can tase something, your friends can swoop in and start hitting it, or anybody with a ranged weapon has a better chance to shoot them while they're standing still. And overall, the weapon is great for maneuvering around zombies because if you can stun them, there's nothing they can do to follow or hurt you. They added another club type, which is the baseball bat, essentially a high-tier refined club. That's all there is to it. It's a baseball bat. Hit them, swing for the fences, etc. They also added new sledgehammers. For those of you that have played the game for a while like me and learned how great the sledgehammer is, you also probably learned that it's a real pain because you can't make it until you have a forge set up and all of that. But now they have added earlier level sledgehammers. So you can build yourself a nice rudimentary stone sledgehammer and start using that right off the bat. And that plays into the ability to kind of choose a weapon path and focus it, as they wanted more weapons to be more readily available early on. So you didn't have to fall in love and put your points into upgrading the weapon you can use now and sacrifice points for a weapon that you might have wanted to use later. Along with that, they added an M60, which is a new machine gun. I didn't get to see that myself, but it's a high-tier machine gun. That's dope. They added knuckle weapons, which I think I touched on earlier, and they are really fun. I actually went for a knuckle weapon build. You can have like leather knuckle wraps, spiked knuckle wraps, or like brass knuckles. Absolutely fun. There's actually a perk as well that lets you punch a zombie in the face, and if you hit it in the face, it loses its ability to infect you. You essentially knock its teeth out. So I was having so much fun sucker punching zombies in the face with my new brass knuckles when I played. Absolutely great weapons. They've also added a double barrel shotgun, which is essentially the shotgun but with a little more up close oomph. They added new bombs and ammo types that I didn't get to experience too much other than finding a TNT stick labeled ammo. And they added some bow changes. So the bow that you can craft right from the beginning of the game with string and plant fiber and whatever is a rudimentary bow. There's then a wooden bow, which is the equivalent to the regular bow in the old game, or Alpha 17. And then the compound bow is still top of the list for that, so that's fine. They did an update to server side and the way things work for throwing items, because there were some issues in multiplayer games and the way things worked where when you threw items, one, they were hard to see, two, the server was handling the arc of the object and whatever, and it just caused some discrepancies between what one player would see and another player would see. So they fixed that kind of stuff and also updated the way that colliders work for thrown items, their size, etc. Just an overhaul of thrown items. They also added in or are working with a new terrain blending system. It's just supposed to help terrain blend with each other better. I know there would be some times where you're walking through different biomes or from a house to this, and you just see a sharp cut between one type of terrain, like grass and snow or something. And this new terrain blender is supposed to help things transition from one to the other a little more smoothly. I definitely did notice that the edges were a little more refined in the game, and I think that's a great feature. I hope they continue to implement that. They also updated their world generation with a more in-house system, they said, and what it does is it creates better biomes, so when it's generating biomes, it doesn't make them as stupid random or as thin or small. It kind of helps regulate the way biomes respond. It also has a smart map for placing roads throughout the world, so the roads don't feel like they're going to absolutely nowhere. Bridges, towns, and everything else. So their system now it generates a world, makes the biomes a little more cohesive, and then smartly decides where should we put bridges, where should the roads connect, where should the towns be. So I'm excited. I was excited to see what I saw. I liked the towns that I saw, and the roads that I happened to see didn't seem too out of whack. Usually the issue is you find a hill and the roads try to go over or around the hill and it just doesn't work. I didn't get to see that so much, but what I saw of the world, it seemed well generated. So, and now the map sizes are much larger. They're 8K size instead of I think 6K from the previous update, so that's awesome. They also reimagined their POIs, and it's just the way it's the way items work, the way the system handles distributing things. It goes along with their new world generator. The final batch of things they did were AI updates, particularly for animals and zombies, which make up pretty much all the AI in the game, really. They added 2 new animals, a coyote and a mountain lion, as if the various dogs, bears, and zombie variants weren't enough. They added more vicious killing objects, so watch out for those. I'm pretty sure I got attacked by a mountain lion while I was streaming, and it was absolutely horrifying. The thing nearly destroyed me. They added a new zombie type called the Demolition Zombie, and this zombie essentially has a charge, and you just have to watch out. It's a very impactful charge. And then they added Zombie Rage Mode. What this means, and I bumped into this a lot while playing, was despite zombies in the middle of the day being stuck to walking around, if you injure them too much, they will occasionally hit a Rage Mode burst, where they will start attacking you and sprinting a little more quickly. This usually lasts for a couple seconds. It's not until their death, but you do have to be careful because that breaks up how the fights are supposed to be. Instead of attack, back off, sometimes you have to be ready to either push on the attack or really, really commit to the retreat because they might just break out into a sprint after you for a few seconds. I mentioned the noise detection system earlier, I believe, and what they really did to that was instead of making it to where when a zombie detects your noise, they move directly towards the player to investigate, they made it to where now if they detect a noise, the zombies will pick a point on the player's breadcrumb, quote-unquote, which is the trail they've left behind as they've moved, and they'll go check that area. So instead of essentially knowing where you are after they hear a noise, they're going to hear the noise and go investigate the area that you've traveled, which is making it a little more realistic and helps your ability to sneak a little better. They also added, and I love this, they added a ragdoll, finally, to the zombies falling over. So if you whack a zombie to the ground, they have the ability to have a physics applied to them. Case in point, in Alpha 17, if you're fighting on a hill and you knock a zombie down, he's going to fall down and lay awkwardly at an angle off the hill, not moving up or down, just lay there until he stands back up. Last night, I had my brass knuckles out. A zombie approached me at the top of the hill, socked him a good one in the face, rolled all the way down the hill. It was absolutely great to watch. And they also added a update for hostile animals where as you're fighting, and as animals do, if they start getting too hurt, they will actually retreat and try to escape, realizing that they aren't going to win the fight. So that's a really handy update for if you're struggling to fight animals. You might see them retreat from you as you're fighting because you've injured them enough, and that could save your life essentially. For vehicles, they just overhauled the vehicles, plain and simple. They updated the handling on the UI a little bit, the way collision works with terrain and the player, and the way that handling the actual vehicle works. So steering, movement, whatever. They've overhauled that a bit. I haven't been able to get there because vehicles take a long time to build, but any work on that's better because the vehicles definitely had some especially collision issues in Alpha 17 that made them a little rough to use. Don't get me wrong, I loved my motorcycle, but it's just hard to work with sometimes. They also overhauled the way the mining system works. Moreover, how easy it is to locate ore. Ores used to be a struggle to find. You just kind of dig through the ground and hope that you run into something. But in the new system, they have ore rocks that will sit above ground and tell you, hey, this rock you can mine for ore, and there's going to be a small vein of it right beneath this in the earth. Now, you can still find stuff underground randomly. That still exists, but to help people be able to locate ore, they flushed out the textures of each different ore and added that topside rock to help you identify and find a spring of it if you're really in the need to find it. The last two things were they updated the server admin controls and some of the mod support, but that's not as much of my area. I'm more of just a general player, so that doesn't affect me as much. And like I said, you can follow the link in the description to read more about that. But they also overhauled the way experience works, and that's part of diversifying their gameplay. There's this big issue with Alpha 17 that a lot of people apparently reported to them, and it's very true. I played a lot and witnessed it, where if you were playing a game and you weren't dedicated to a class that allowed you to go out and kill zombies constantly, you were struggling with being underleveled, even with experience sharing on. And that rang true mostly for people who were stuck in the intelligence tree. I played with a group of mine, and one of my friends ended up becoming an intelligence drone, where all he would do is put his points into intelligence and build tools for us and build items for us and whatever. And he wasn't super against it, but whenever he tried to leave and do anything combat oriented, it ruined him because he was lower level, so he didn't have any perk points to put into combat or survivability, and all the points that he had used already went to intelligence. So he was essentially a house body. So with their new system and the new schematics and the way new experience works, you not only get to earn more experience by completing tasks like farming and cooking and creating objects, but you also are able to now find schematics to build things, which lets you diversify your build a little bit. You no longer have to dedicate yourself to being the science nerd while all of your friends get to run around and have fun killing zombies and looting buildings. So overall, the amount of updates they provided to this game were absolutely amazing. I was super, super, super happy to see all the work they did, and I'm excited for this game to keep going. I love seeing that they, like, despite how long this game has been in alpha and how long they've been working on it, that they have not given up, and that they're continuing to add amazing new features to this game with every update, and they're pushing themselves each time to be better and better. It's absolutely impressive. If you haven't played or downloaded or bought 7 Days to Die, I would personally recommend it a lot. It's always better if you can get a bunch of friends in, but even then, every now and again, I'll sit down and spend a couple hours just playing on my own world, because the worlds are very enveloping. It's very fun to get into. Fighting zombies has always been fun for me, and this game just really takes it to a new level with the way it's designed. So I'm really excited about Alpha 18. I'm excited about the work that the Fun Pimps are doing, and I cannot wait to see what happens in Alpha 19. Either way, thank y'all for sitting with me as I ran y'all through this update. It's really fun already from my experience. I played for a couple hours. I plan to put a few more in for sure to this update. And I hope that you guys can get on and see the game for yourself. If you ever want to play with us, let us know. We have a Discord down in the link below in the description. And we'd love to have you come in and we can make a world together and I'll play it. We absolutely love this game over at KeySmash. So anything you want to do with us, we'd be happy to do that. Either way, thank y'all so much for listening to this, and I hope y'all have a great weekend. Bye-bye!